we're up and going. So back to the PowerPoint. So this gap between the presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane is called a synapse or a synaptic cleft, C-L-E-F-T. And to repeat and hope you'll remember this, that if there were no biochemical neurotransmitters, there would be nobody getting high. It would be very, very dull. You couldn't get a buzz when you drink a beer. You couldn't get a buzz when you snorted, when you smoked a doobie, smoked a marijuana cigarette. So, in respect for all these biochemicals that allow nerves to have a biochemical message between the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron, we should legalize all drugs because we're wasting trillions of dollars trying to stop people from doing drugs. Do you really think people are going to stop doing drugs? No. So let's spend it on doing no harm to addicts, to having needle exchanges, to having centers that help people with life-changing life-changing addictions to drugs. Let's change it and take care of them. It'll cost a lot less than trying to arrest everybody and put them in prison. Just think how many people who smoked a joint ends up in prison. And all these private companies come in and want to run the prison because there are enormous populations. The populations of in the 1960s, there were about 350,000 prisoners in the U.S. prison system. And then by 10 years later or so, when the government criminalized drug use much more drastically, the prison population went to 700,000. So please vote for people to take care of people who use drugs because human beings will never stop using drugs. The stress of modern life, the pressure on people, the presence of pandemics, people are going to drink. So it's all right to drink, but it's not all right to smoke marijuana in most states. It's all right to smoke cigarettes, but it's again not legal to smoke marijuana. Now, marijuana has a lot of supposedly positive health effects, but it's not all good either. No drugs are all good. So vote for decriminalization. That would get rid of the drug cartels and legalize prostitution, because how do cartels make money? They make money from selling drugs and selling women. So both have to be decriminalized and made legal. Will men stop seeking out prostitutes? No, never. Will people stop using drugs? No. Spend the money to take care of the prostitutes like they do in the state of Nevada, where prostitution is legal in certain locations. Okay, let's keep going. The different drugs that are released at synapses, if they release acetylcholine, that's called a cholinergic synapse. If they release norepinephrine or epinephrine, that's called the adrenergic synapse. And if they release dopamine, that's called a dopaminergic synapse. So you can see that different chemicals do different things at different synapses. So again, to look what happens, the presynaptic neuron has a nerve signal, action potential. Calcium enters the cell. The vessels fuse with the cell membrane. They release, say, acetylcholine, and that movement of sodium at the synapse and at the neuromuscular junction or the postsynaptic neuron, that sodium moving in spreads in both directions and it depolarizes and causes the action potential to spread. And if you change the voltage, you change the shape of proteins. You open channels, you allow sight, hearing, smelling, because when sodium and potassium and calcium move into cells, when voltage changes, the shape of proteins changes. That means that enzymes can be activated. It means that these activated enzymes can cause cells to use the change in the voltage to change the shape of protein, and switches can be turned on and off. When somebody presses against your skin, the mechanical pressure causes changes in the shape of proteins, and it starts a whole process that you can feel pain, you can feel touch, and so on. So our awareness of the world and the awareness of every animal on the face of the earth works the same. Biochemicals are used as neurotransmitters. Channels allow in sodium, then allow out of potassium to move out. And it's all based upon the fact that neurotransmitters can cause channels to open, pressure can cause channels to open, heat and pain can cause channels to open. And once channels are able to let in sodium, close those channels and let potassium leave the cell, action potentials can be generated. And that's how eventually your spinal cord coordinates input, sends output, and that's how the ascending tracks and the descending tracks, the ascending tracks carrying information to the brain, the descending pathways carrying information away from the brain. But between nerves and muscle, you have this synapse that uses biochemicals. And what do the neurotransmitters do? They open up channels. What does the date rape drug do, Gap? Well, it's now being used as a legal drug to treat depression. So anytime you're at a party, if somebody gives you a drink, don't drink it, because the date rape drug will lead to unfortunate events. So there's a drug that was developed for treatment in animals, and it's being abused by usually stupid and mean guys. But there's an example of, if we didn't have synapses, immoral events such as drugging a young lady and then raping her would not happen. That might be a good thing, probably a good thing, but also people couldn't get high on marijuana, on cocaine, on codeine, relieving pain. All of those events would not happen because all those drugs modify what happens at the synapse and how much and when neurotransmitters are released. Okay, let's stop there. After Dr. Clifford gives you a lecture, but please vote for decriminalization and legalization of drugs and prostitution. You want to pay less? Okay, stop.